Okay.
Oh, he's plugging in, I think. He's plugging in. He's there.
Okay.
He's duck and cover.
He's practicing. I guess we should. Are we?
Good now.
Okay, we are live.
We're live.
That's how we get that
We're-
percent when it's hard.
Karen Casino, we're live.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. So I would like to welcome everyone to our special board meeting. Today is Monday, March 1st, 2021. So happy first day of March. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And Madam Clerk, if you would do the roll call, please.
Trustee Claudia Swastiki, here. Trustee Andrew Butler,
Here.
Trustee Manuel Godina,
Here.
Vice Chairman Travis Manning,
Here.
and Madam Chair Maricela Pesina.
Here. And if you would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag is back here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, so Madam Clerk, could you please recite to us the board meeting agenda postings?
Madam Chair Pesina and trustees, I request the approval of the Board of Trustees special board meeting agenda posting for Monday, March 1st, 2021. The original agenda was posted on Friday, February 26, 2021 at 3:36 p.m. The agenda was posted on the school district website and at the Caldwell District Office.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask for a motion to approve and accept the agenda postings.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the agenda posting for March 1st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion, trustees? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. So tonight we meet is a special meeting agenda, and we're gonna be talking about our district continuing school operation plan for 2020 and 2021 school year. So let's see, we can.
Madam Chair, would
Yes.
you like us to, like, I can have Caleb put that plan up? Share, would you like for the board to see that plan? We can put it out.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
okay.
Would you, Caleb? Our
Do you want me to
continuing-
run that?
Is it on the board doc?
It is on board docs. And so it's called CSD Digital Plan. The first one. I just thought maybe just have that out in front, and I'm not sure
Yes.
if everyone,
And one of the things that I'd like to say to our patrons that are listening and our staff that's listening is that, you know, from the beginning, we've had a plan. We've followed our plan. We have made amendments to our plan as necessary with numbers that have occurred. But we've had a really good plan, and our plan has worked. So that's one of the things that, you know, I'd like to state that with any new information, and we're always asking for new information, whether it be medical professionals that come and talk to us on a panel, or whether it be surveys from our students, our staff, and our patrons. So we've always tried to gather as much information that we can in order to make the best decision regarding our plan. But just so everybody knows, you know, we do have a plan. It's on our board docs. Anybody has access to it. And you can see at the end of our plan, our operating plan, the different amendments, and we made those amendments. So just wanted to put that out there for our patrons and our staff. So Dr. French, if you
Yeah,
would.
Madam Chair, and Trustee, so at our board meeting on February 8th, you know, there was a motion was made, as you know, and the question I have is like, well, part of our plan is to review that plan. And I think we've also received some new information and updates. And so we just, and my thoughts and feelings are that we just to review and make sure that if we need to revise this plan, we do want to look at the information that we've received from Southwest District Health. And I would like the board to just, you know, let's talk about what this plan entails. And as we go forward with health information, I don't know if anyone, that's why we're here, is just to look at that information so that we can keep making very good decisions for the children of Caldwell.
Yes. And I had a question, Dr. French, just for clarification. Our plan, our continuing operation plan is in colors. So we
It is.
have a green, a yellow,
Would you
and a
scroll
red.
down a little bit, Caleb, for us so that people, if they're asking, yeah.
A green, a yellow, and a red. And sometimes, you know, the question is, you know, with the matrix that CDC has, or Southwest District Clinic, or I'm sorry, Southwest District Health Department, you know, how do those colors coincide with our colors or our coding? So could you explain that to us a little bit?
I can, and I think if, Caleb, if you go to the Southwest District Health website, we can. The COVID, oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It'll take you to the code. We just need their COVID page, which would be COVID-19.
It's a little virus, I think, on the bottom right.
Yeah, the
The
little
green guy?
virus. And then if you go to the health alert system, the menu bar for health alert. And then if you scroll down, so this is the Southwest District Health, you know, color coding.
Mhm.
And if you scroll down some more, you're doing really well.
Thank you.
This shows up here. Oh, okay, it's, I'm sorry, so Caleb, go ahead and go back up, I apologize. So where it says the Idaho Back to School Framework, when you click on that, what you see is that the orange and yellow are the yellow for our school district plan. That's kind of how we read it.
Mhm.
And then red is red, orange, yellow is yellow, their gray is our green.
Okay,
Sorry, I was hoping, because you know, they used to have that
okay,
out there, that transition. So I hope that helps.
okay.
So gray is the green.
Uh-huh. Orange and yellow is our yellow,
Uh-huh.
and red's our red.
Right.
Okay,
We didn't change the colors because it became very, you know,
correct.
and when we talk those colors, you know, we have made some changes even in the way we're operating. The county might be in a certain, say low risk or medium risk. And we have done some changing, which, you know, in January we did. We were in a orange yellow, and we did bring students back. We weren't in remote anymore. We brought kids back. And then our county has continued to we've seen decreases in positivity rates. So we have made adjustments there, but we've, you know, really tried to look at the plan before we made a change, right? And
Yes.
trying to project out what might happen in the next 2 weeks. We did a 2-week, that was our goal. It's like looking at every 2 weeks, what would it look like? And then we did hear back from folks, please don't change on a dime.
Mhm.
It's really hard. So trying to project out what could be the scenario after spring break. You know, I think that's where we were, is trying to project that on February 8th. So almost a month, 2 months later, we were trying to look at a 2-month timeframe to make a projection on March 29th. So, and that's really challenging. So it's nice that you're willing to come back tonight, because of course I enjoy seeing you on a Monday. And to just have that conversation as we get closer to that March 29th date, what is the health situation in our county. Now, and Madam Chair and trustees, we did invite Dr. Sousa and Dr. Augustus, and I believe they're here with us this evening. I don't know, you probably want to turn some time to them.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please. So can you hear us, Dr. Souza, Dr. Augustus?
Yes.
I heard a yes
Okay.
from Dr. Sousa.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for attending. We appreciate you being present, and we appreciate the information that you can share with us. We are, almost at the end of our school year. In a sense, we've decided that we're going to stay in the plan that we have right now until March 29th. And in March 29th, our board had decided that we want to bring our elementary children back 4 days a week. And then we were still thinking about leaving our secondary students in hybrid stage. But, we see that the numbers are dwindling. I'd like to believe that those numbers are going down because we have a plan and we stuck to our plan. But I'd like to hear your comments. We just want to know that we're doing the best for our community, the best for our students. We don't want, our students to suffer, our staff to suffer, our community to suffer. So we'd like to just ask you what your thoughts are. And let's start with A, because A is at the beginning of the alphabet. Dr. Augustus, can you share with us some comments, some information?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think things are relatively good in Caldwell right now. We only have 2 current inpatients at West Valley with COVID. We've certainly seen a significant decline since our early January numbers. And, we have had a significant portion of our staff receive the vaccination, and our number of staff sick calls has also dramatically declined. So we're encouraged by that. I'm still a little concerned that if one of these very infectious variants hits our community, that we could see one more wave of this before we get a large portion of the population vaccinated. So I have still a little bit of concern, but I certainly feel a lot better than we did last time we met.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Souza, if we could have your comments, sir.
Yeah, it's a similar story. Like everybody, our case numbers are down. For reference, we're probably at 10% of the inpatient COVID census that we were at the first week of December. So, literally a 90% reduction, which is great. Our employee call-offs are also down. Our hospital capacity is good. I think there's just, Dr. Augustus called them out. There's 2 wild cards in this situation. One is the new variants, and they're picking up steam across the United States. And last week was the first week after many weeks of decline, we actually had a national uptick in cases. Europe, which is right in the same kind of latitudes that we are, also had an uptick within the last 2 weeks after similar downturns. So that's a wild card. We don't know what it means, which when we get to maybe recommendations on your policies, to me just means don't let up now in terms of masks. We got to finish this race. We're like at 25 miles in the marathon. Let's cross the finish line strong and standing. The other wild card is vaccination. And, everybody knows that the entire country has struggled with, to some degree, with distribution of the vaccines. We too in Idaho have. I mean, we're making good progress, but not nearly as quickly as all of us would like to see. So those are the two variables, you know. I've been saying since the end of the year, last year, that it feels like we're in a race now, a race to get vaccines in arms before the new variants can grab a firm hold. So, stand for any questions.
Okay, I have a question, Dr. Souza, on the variants, you know, in the different strain on this COVID virus. Is there anything that we know, like who it's affecting? Do we have any information on that? Is it still very new? I know that every day information changes and knowledge changes. Is there anything that we know about these new strains?
We know that they're more contagious. We know that at least part of the reason that they appear to be more contagious appears to be due to actual increases in viral shedding for people who are infected. That's part of it. It's more complex than that. There's a signal that they may be more serious in terms of the disease they cause, although not largely. At least two of the variants appear to, really be no more, let's see, how should I say this? The vaccine is as effective against them as the other strains of COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 that we've been following. The South African variant may be different, but there's still good news on the vaccine for even the South African variant, B1351, and that is that the vaccine still appears to protect against death and severe illness. And really that's been what has been the challenge with this virus from the beginning of the pandemic. It hasn't been its high mortality rate, right? Its mortality rate is quite low. It's been the burden it's created on healthcare delivery by packing hospitals and ICUs with sick patients, many of whom went on to survive. Sadly, a few of whom didn't. But you asked about who it's infecting. There, some weeks back, there was news that children may be more vulnerable to these new variants than to the original strains. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've not updated my knowledge base on that in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if Dr. Augustus has.
I have not either. So I don't know if there's new data on that.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is we should think about this as largely a more contagious version of the same virus, which now that community activity is coming down, that's great news. That means like now's the time to win the race, finish the last mile, wear our masks, and win. Outsmart this little ball of lipids.
And I have a question that I personally, so if we've had the vaccine, how important is it to still continue to use the mask?
Yeah. Rich, you want to beat me to the? No, I'll take it. So the true answer is we don't know for sure, right? I've had the vaccine. I could still get infected. If I get infected, I mean, that's a proven fact, right? I hope everybody in the room and listening knows that. We know there's breakthrough in other words, people who've had the vaccine who then go on to acquire the infection. When they do, though, they're more likely to be asymptomatic
or they're more likely to be mildly symptomatic. And those are both associated with generally a lesser risk of transmitting this virus, but that risk is not zero. So, I'm still wearing my mask every day at work, all day, whenever I'm anywhere except in an office by myself with the door closed. It's universal. If you guys return to all in person, I hope you'll continue that. That's how we'll win.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open up for the trustees. Trustees, do you have any questions for the doctors? Any questions, comments?
I guess I've got a question, and this goes for either one of you. I know last year there were some discrepancies between the various governmental health agencies, discrepancies in their advice, and some politicization of some of their advice. Are you still sort of seeing that, or are we seeing more alignment with decision makers from the governmental health level?
I think we're seeing much more alignment now than we did in the early phases. Part of that was truly our knowledge was growing so quickly. We had a lot to learn, and we didn't know the right answers sometimes. And so you'd hear even the same person give conflicting advice 2 or 3 weeks apart. And that was because our knowledge base changed. So as our knowledge has been more stable and we know much more about this virus, we've been able to give better advice than we did in the early stages of the pandemic.
Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees?
I guess I have a question about the physical distancing. The CDC recommends, mask and physical distance is the number 1 and number 2. There's also 3 other recommendations as we're looking at least right now for the elementary to go back. Is that okay? Is that acceptable? Do you feel that that's safe enough if we're not being able to do the physical distancing, but we're still able to do the other 4 out of 5 things that the CDC recommends in terms of the hand washing, the cleaning, and contact tracing? Is that enough to overcome some of that physical distancing that we won't be able to do?
So I would say at the elementary school level, things look pretty good. When you review the events that have happened, there are not that many reported spreading events in elementary school. And why that is, I am not 100% sure. These kids seem to have a ramped up immune system and respond quicker than we as adults do. They don't seem to spread it as much. So the more we can do, the safer it gets, though. So if you can do 4 out of 5, that's better than 3 out of 5. And 5 out of 5 is obviously best.
I'd probably echo what Dr. Augustus just said. Throughout this thing, decision-making has been pushed down to the lowest level. I think the last time I had a chance to visit with you folks, I thanked you for making hard decisions and putting safety of kids first, balancing that safety, their health, their education, their mental well-being. And I stand by those same comments. We do have examples right here in Southwest Idaho of schools that are open and full-time in-person attendance. The more things you do, the better. So to answer your question, again, the policy's been pushed to you. I'm not going to tell you what your policy is. I agree with Dr. Augustus, more is better. I just want to come down on the most important thing are the masks and air movement. So, if you can open windows as things start warming up, great. But the masks really have to be universally applied and universally enforced. And I understand. I mean, kids are kids. They move around a lot. They move into their bubbles and their spaces. That's one of the things about a mask. It's like a wearable version of creating distance. It totally changes the way your aerosols or move about a room.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions, trustees? I just want to make sure you have your questions answered.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up with what Trustee Butler just asked. So that's elementary.
Mhm.
So what about the older student, the student that's 13, 16, 17, what about them? And just what you had asked Trustee Butler, I mean, the safety for those older students where physical distancing is not, it's not possible, really.
So that's a question for you, the doctors.
Yes.
From the demographics I've seen, it appears that the older the child gets, the more risk they are of becoming infected themselves and of then having a significant amount of virus to spread. So then it just makes all of those elements that we talked about more important. That if we do the right things, we can still reduce the risk substantially. But you have to make sure we're exercising all of those methods.
Agree. And speaking of exercise, that means like actually wearing masks in indoor sports. That means adhering to, the people on the sidelines and the spectators are masked up. People in the locker rooms are masked up. Mask, mask, mask. It works. And double down on what Dr. Augustus said about us aligning our recommendations. I mean, really for the last 8 months since July, we've been consistent on this point of masking being the most important thing that we can do to protect one another.
Okay. Any follow-up questions, Dr. French?
Oh, no, I was just,
Okay.
no, thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for the doctors? Anybody present in the room? We're good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Souza and Dr. Augustus. We really, really appreciate your being able to be here with us and giving us information. I'll make sure you guys get a dozen tamales as soon as possible.
I'll take it.
But thank you very much. We appreciate you being here with us and helping us with the very hard decisions we have to make. So appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye now.
Good luck. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So there was a report, Dr. French, that came out from Southwest District just like a little bit ago that I think that, I don't know if all the trustees were able to look at, or if they were able, close to their computers, that they were able to review. Just wondering if you could speak at that.
Sorry, Madam Chair and Trustees, so this just came out, I'm gonna say around, it was after 4 o'clock when I was looking for that. It may have been even a little later than 4 o'clock. And Caleb, it's called the COVID-19 Incident Rate by School District. It's the very last attachment. So this just came out, and I'm pretty sure I wrote this big in the subject line, read, or whatever I wrote, like in all caps, because you won't have time to see this, I don't think. So this was sent by Southwest District Health. Thank you. So this is an incident rate by school district, which they have just started. So you may have seen it the last time we met, they sent this out, and I've tried to keep it on the board docs. Again, once again, just wanted to let everyone know, the school operation plan has been on our agenda every month. Every Monday we've met.
Mhm.
It's been on there, and I tried to make sure that all of these, all of the information you're receiving from Southwest District Health or our health professionals, survey questions, responses, they are also available for public view. So this is available for public view. And you can see, this is the incident rate by school district, which is really it's newish. I saw it once back in, I think, November. I haven't seen it again until Southwest District Health just started sending it again, probably last month. So if you'll scroll down a bit, we're in Adams County, North Canyon County. You can see the incident rate by school district. I think you can see that. And you can see in Canyon County who is at yellow and who is in their gray.
So we are, I can't read it from here, but we are, if you could
We
point.
are at 0.985.
Okay, so
So this
we're
is
in the gray.
Middleton. So in Northern Canyon County, you have Middleton, Otis, Wilder, Parma, and Caldwell. You scroll down a little bit. And then you have the Nampa and Melba in South Canyon, and scroll down a little bit. Oh, not Jim. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, wait, Valley View's on here.
Yeah, it was
Did I miss
keep
it?
going up. I think the next one. There you go.
Sorry. Oh, Valley
That's
View,
Valley View.
somehow I saw North Oahe County and I'm like, wait, Oahe? I'm like, oh, but this is Valley View and Homedale. So I'm thinking Marsing is that Oahe, but this is the Valley View School District, which is also in Canyon County.
Okay.
Does that help? Sorry, I was just going along. If you wanted to go back to the Caldwell slide. Thanks. So that just came out today.
Mhm. And which one is the bottom one right there, the gray one?
This is Nampa.
Nampa. And then the gray one at the
This
bottom?
Parma,
Oh, that's us.
Caldwell, probably
That's us, okay.
Melba.
Mhm,
Part of this is Melba and maybe, well, Valley View
mhm.
is gonna be around here as well. But the way they did Valley View, I think it's one more. It's the Oahe one, Oahe, sorry. Yeah, so then you can see how it's going around Nampa and us.
Mhm. Okay, what I find interesting is that of the bigger school districts, we've been able to maintain in gray, of the bigger school districts. The other school districts that look, the area is big is like Parma and Melba, but there's smaller school districts, but as many kids as we have, I just think it's interesting that we've been able to maintain in gray. And I'd like to say that because we, stayed with our plan and did the masking and, our schools are following a good plan. So, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
because that is reported, that's based on, the data represents the daily incident rate for 10,000 people that live in each school district. So that is your school district, that's patrons as well, right?
Mhm.
And the data is averaged over 2 weeks. It represents the residents of the school district, not students or staff associated with that. Because
Okay.
our staff doesn't necessarily, not all of them live in
Right.
Caldwell, they may
Mhm.
live outside of the district boundary, but that's how they're monitoring it. So we have to know that some of our staff live here,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Some might live in Valley View
Mhm.
or Nampa, but
Mhm.
it kind of gives you an idea of what they're watching by school district.
Okay.
So that, in Canyon County, as we've talked about it before, the virus doesn't live by a school boundary line,
Mhm.
right? So as people
Right.
drive back and forth,
Yes.
I think that's why we've been monitoring it and watching it, to see how. I do appreciate that. I appreciate where we're at,
Mhm.
but just knowing that we're still interconnected with the other school districts because of where our families live or our teachers may live. And
Correct.
okay,
Okay. All
our
right.
families may work.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr.
So-
French and Madam Chair.
Yes. Go ahead. Trustee.
So I just had a quick question. Do our buildings or middle school, high school buildings have windows that can actually open? Like the doctors were talking about
Airflow.
airflow. I think Bernie would probably be.
Yeah, he may, I can speak to some of it. Madam Chair and Trustee Questions and Trustees, no, not all. Not all of them have windows that open. But I'm visiting with, I do want you to know that we do have a certified HVAC professional on staff. And we have been working for 3 years on improving HVAC and the airflow. And they are still working on that, right? We've done we're looking at rebalancing, making sure airflow is moving in the right direction. There are some emails going back and forth today with teachers and the principal about what would you do, but not all buildings have windows that open. As you may or may not know, Washington Elementary and Van Buren are green schools, so their windows do not open. So it was an energy efficient school. That is one of those situations. There are classrooms in Caldwell High School that are interior classrooms, that there's no outside wall. Or, you know what I'm saying? They're wall to the outside. So, I'm trying to, so I hope that answers that
It does,
question.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow up on that? I remember months ago, it seems like years ago, right? To talk about different filters to be able to put in to help mitigate some of the virus spread. So was that something that was done at the time? So we have.
And I don't know if April wanted to speak. She works really close with Bernie, but the answer is yes.
So even if we can't open windows, we have specialty filters that are filtering the air.
That is correct. But we're still addressing it. I mean, it's an ongoing work. And I don't want to take Bernie's thunder because he has a great presentation to study the work. But I will say this, and April can correct me if I'm wrong, but HVAC improvements at Caldwell High School alone are almost $500,000 since started the work 3 years ago, in improving the airflow system, the air conditioning, heat, and it's a big project. Obviously, that takes some time. Addressing other schools as well. But yes, we did put in the 13.
And those 13 filters that were recommended, the highest filter that we could put in our systems. So we have those.
Bernie has been meeting with a gentleman from GPS, which you may have seen that from ISBA. They had sent out a recommendation for this company they felt like they were viable. Someone we could speak to about ionization. I think I said that right.
Yes. It's air quality and other districts have purchased it. We're doing an evaluation right now currently. Our licensed HVAC individual is meeting with them tomorrow to look at different schools, and we will look at special areas where we feel there is a higher need as opposed to all schools, but we are looking at that as well. Looking at putting in anything that we can to do air quality.
And I can't really speak to ionization. It's not is more technical than I went through the presentation. I watched that. I'm like, well, that is interesting. But the goal is to create such an atmosphere where particles fall to the ground so that they're not in the air. So we're ongoing. I just want you to be, I want to assure teachers and staff and you that this is ongoing and we've been working on it all year.
And for numerous years.
Yeah.
Many years.
Well, oh yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think it will be ongoing after, because those are issues that have to be addressed. And our custodians, we want to thank them because they have had to help. I mean, well, they do help to help change those filters, to help bring it to our attention if there's an issue. So, I mean, they're just key to that. So we're grateful for them as well and want to make sure they're recognized for that work.
Mr. French and April.
Hello, Dr. Smith, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, Bernie. Yes, Bernie just texted me and said he was trying to talk.
Oh.
So Bernie is on the meeting.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead,
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, we have the MERV 13s. They have been put in. We've put them in where we're almost getting ready to go through the cycle. We've been putting them, rotating them 3 months. So there are coming up on the rotation. So we have those in place. As far as the windows, that's correct. The Washington and Van Buren, those are the ones that do not have operable windows, but we do have the MERV 13s put in place. So we have the maximum filtration we possibly can.
Yeah, that actually answered my question, Bernie. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, thank you. So one of the topics, so one of the items I want to bring up this evening is that I know that I've received a lot of emails from patrons and teachers and people that are concerned about our reopening plan. I know that my fellow trustees have also received them because I've been also added to those emails. And, you know, some of the questions that have been asked, I kind of wanted just to broadly maybe just kind of just talk a bit about it a little bit. We talk about, we've talked up here at our board meetings a lot about the mental health issues that our students go through, and the fact that those mental issues, you know, could be increasing due to the fact that the kids are not in school. You know, one of my questions, just throwing it out there to the district office is, you know, have the suicide rates gone up, Dr. French or China, you know, from previous years to this last pandemic period? I mean, I know that there could be a lot of attempts that we don't know, that are unknown, but just to, if we have a way of knowing, do we have numbers at this time?
Yeah, Madam Chair, trustees, I do have some information about 4 years worth of data. In the 17-18 school year, we had 3 suicides. In the 18-19 school year, we didn't have any. In the 19-20 school year, we had 2. And this year, we are at 0 so far.
Okay.
And that, you know, I don't know, Madam Chair and trustees, so I don't know how that speaks to parents or parent issues, or because we are aware of not necessarily in our school district, but other districts where parents have had, students are facing that tragedy in their own home too. You know,
Yes.
so it is widespread, right? That feeling of, I guess, you know, loss of hope, possibly, right? So, but based on what we have, and some of that, well, it's very confidential information. And there are, you know, some, we cannot get all of that, and anything shared with the counselor is confidential. So,
yeah, and I in no way intend to minimize any, you know, of these deaths whenever they have happened, or, you know, in no way, shape, or form am I minimizing this. But, you know, I just, you know, numbers, data, we're driven by data, and just kind of want to know where we stand right now with this pandemic. I know that it's a topic that comes up a lot, sometimes with our legislators, you know, the mental health problem, and that's maybe one of the reasons we should open up the schools. And, you know, sometimes I'd like to see, okay, if that's an issue, and this is just maybe going off topic, but, you know, let's get some more funding into our school districts so we can have more programs that are geared towards mental health issues, not where band teachers have to deal with something like this, which, you know, I know that a lot of our professionals are trained for many things in many different aspects of a student's life, but, you know, a band teacher is going to teach band, you know, and so that, you know, I think about that a lot. And then I think, you know, yeah, if we bring our kids back to school, they do socialize, but then also, how do they socialize? Are they still socializing, texting through their phone at the lunchroom? You know, is it different than before? And then also, I think about the counselors that we have at our schools sometimes, and maybe, I don't know if Miss Wilson is on the line with the high school, you know, if she could talk to the fact of what our counselors, you know, like during this pandemic time, what are they working on? What is their the scope of their work, scheduling, are they, what do they do when there's a case of a mental health issue student? Could you speak to that, Mrs. Wilson, Ms. Wilson?
Madam Chair, trustees, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I see I have a very large head up there on that screen in the room. Glad for that. So if I understand your question, I would answer it just by saying that the counselor's job looks very similar to what it does during normal school operations. They are seeing students. We are open. Our school is open. We have students every single day, and many students, more than half of our students come to school 3 times a week. So 3 days a week. So we are very much open. And so a counselor's day like today, they were registering 8th graders for 9th grade for high school. So they were over at one of the middle schools, and they will be at the other middle school next week. So I would say that mental health is a priority because all of our counselors, all 4 of our counselors are trained mental health professionals. And so that is their primary job. And we've tried to shuffle their duties so that that can be a priority, not just for emergencies, because they always take priority when a student is in need. Our counselors always will make that a priority, but so that they can also prioritize preventative measures and being proactive with students. So, but their day is spent much like it is any other day. We have more than 700 students on campus on any given day. So they see students, they conduct 504s, they are doing scheduling, and it depends the amount on the time of year it is. Like, for instance, today, I would say they spent 100% of their time scheduling, but they were doing that in front of kids, presenting the courses that we are going to offer next year. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. And to kind of piggyback, a lot of the information I want to give out to the public right now is, just the questions that I've seen, or the concerns that I've seen from patrons in the emails that we've gotten. Some of them talk about, how their students are, their grades are, they're dropping, they're getting Fs on their classes. And so could you tell us about what our plan is for high school students who have an F in their class? And I'm speaking more towards the Wednesdays that, the options that are available. So can you speak to that?
Yes. Madam Chair, we've implemented this year, when we saw that a lot of students were struggling academically because they do have reduced time face-to-face with their teachers. So we implemented this semester, and we did it a couple of times before Christmas, but Wednesdays are intervention days. We were using those for just online tutoring, but we knew that students needed to see their teachers face-to-face. So we run our buses on their regular bus routes. It's a shortened day, just like we had before the pandemic. And students go to 5 classes, all of their classes, whether they are struggling in those classes or not, but they spend a shortened period. It's about 50 minutes with each teacher working on whatever it is that they're missing, making up tests or quizzes if they miss them, or getting extra help on assignments. And we have seen great improvement in grades. And we've actually seen good attendance. So students who don't come, who are not struggling, who are just trucking along like they should be, they don't, so they don't have to physically come on Wednesdays, but we email out to parents and students on Mondays that they're asked to come, they're able to come on Wednesdays. And we see about 70% of those students in attendance on Wednesdays. So
Okay.
That is pretty good. And we have seen good improvement in grades over time.
Okay, so the parents are being communicated to
Mhm.
on a regular basis on how their kids are doing, and that Wednesday is available to them, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and if
They
they
should
have any
receive an email.
questions and need to, they can contact the high school office and get to the nitty gritty of this.
Yes.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I have a question.
yes, Vice Chair Manning.
So Principal Wilson, I wonder if you could talk about attendance for a minute, and compare attendance from the previous couple of years to this year. Like, as far as percentage of attendance and issues around attendance, be it students with jobs and things like that.
Yes, Madam Chair, Trustee Manning, I can talk a little bit about that. So we have been, and April's going to have to remind me because she probably has better information than me. But just at the last few weeks, I've looked at, we're at about 85 to 87% attendance. And I think on a normal year, we're closer to 93. Is that, April will have to correct me?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I think we're just in a really unique situation where sometimes students are sick with strep or something happens in their family and they have to help a family member move, or they have a dentist appointment or something, there's sick for other reasons or out of school for other reasons other than COVID. And at this point in time, our students have the option to attend online, even if it's their assigned day. So an A student who should be in class with their teacher on an A day, but they have, something happen, but they're able to get online and be present in their class on a Google Meet. We don't count them absent. They can be there. They're participating in the class. But then there were just some students that are just, sometimes you're sick and you cannot do class, you have to be in bed that day. So, we still have the process of parents can call in and excuse their students. But I think that it is difficult right now. The motivation piece is difficult right now for students to maybe become motivated to be in school, because it's easy to say that they only go a couple days a week or whatever that is. We do run each week our list of students that are failing classes and our list of students that are not coming to school on a regular basis, that have missed, that have been absent 90% of the time. They have not been in attendance 90% of the time. So they've missed 10% of the days. And we compare that. Those are the students that will typically get a phone call. And if it is egregious, they will have a home visit. And so Karen Cameron conducts those for us. She takes either the SRO or another personnel with her and visits just to see what's going on. Sometimes the students have moved and we just find that out by going to their house. So there's all kinds of things going on. I think that the pandemic has just exacerbated some of the problems, but also there are some things that are possible that weren't possible before either, like the Google Meets.
I've got another question to Principal Wilson, and this one has to deal with sort of academic rigor, I guess. So comparing previous school years to this one, as far as how much curriculum that teachers get through, what's your take on sort of the average class as to what percentage of the curriculum they're getting through on this year, for example, versus previous years?
Great question. Madam Chair, Trustee Manning, I don't have a percentage, but as you know, we changed our schedule this school year and we went to quarters. And we did that with the purpose of helping students be able to manage the amount of coursework they had at one time. So we typically have 7 periods. Right now we have 5. So students are keeping track of less classes each day. And then also so that teachers, when they do have the students, they have them for a longer period of time. So typically in a 7-period normal year, 7-period day, our periods were 52 minutes long. And now they're 75 minutes long. So students have 5 classes, 75 minutes apiece every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And so because of our change, so they have a short, so basically we have 4 semesters because each quarter is a semester, and students are earning credits every quarter. So that it's got its pros and cons. It goes quick, that's for sure. But this semester, since Christmas, there is actually some extra days in there, and we have been in school most of the time in remote rather than being, or in hybrid rather than being all remote. But I would definitely say that teachers have had to rework their pacing of their curriculum. They've had to probably make some choices because some things are just not possible. Like some of our teachers, they had to go to an online curriculum, or we had to purchase some supplies or curriculum. We also had to make some choices because some classes have to be every day. And so we've been sorting through all of that all year. And some things we were not able to offer this year that we'll offer next year. So there's definitely been some cutting out of material and programs that we've offered. So I think, I don't have a percentage for you, but I think definitely there has had to be some choices made in what teachers are able to present and where they're going to get to in their curriculum. One thing that has helped is this quarter going to that every day is a Google Meet or in-person learning. So it is a different lesson every day. So it's not Monday is one lesson and then Tuesday the same lesson is delivered again. It's Monday's a lesson, Tuesday's a lesson, Thursday's a lesson, Friday's a lesson. Wednesday, you get help, if that makes sense.
And Principal Wilson, would you explain that? Not every secondary school is doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I think when we began this journey, the thought was that an A day, students would get a lesson if they're in person. And then if they're at home, they're working on something that the teacher has assigned. And then Tuesday, the kids that were at home would come in, get a lesson, review what they did the day before, and the kids from the day before would be at home working on something. So we started out that way. It was extremely laborious and difficult really to keep track and to really keep moving in the class. So this semester we implemented where whether the student is at home or in class, the teacher conducts a Google Meet every day, 4 days a week. And in fact, I just observed one of our really great teachers, Christy Birch. I just observed her last Friday. It was great. I was in my office. I was on a Google Meet with her. She was showing her screen and working through problems. The kids' faces were all up on the screen, but she was also upstairs teaching a class. And I left the Google Meet about halfway through and walked upstairs into her classroom. And she has 10 kids in class doing the exact same thing that I had just seen on the Google Meet. So the teachers are doing introducing new material 4 days a week, and the kids are either getting that in person or they are on a Google Meet getting that information. Does that help?
No, that's not happening at the middle school. So that is a Caldwell High School specific. Caleb set them up so that they had the technology to do that. And that was a request. Yeah.
I guess I've got another follow-up.
Yes, go ahead.
So Principal Wilson, so if for some reason, if the board changed the direction and kids at the high school level went back to school 4 days a week or whatever, how would that look? How would that potentially impact academic rigor, student motivation, student learning, things like that, in your guesstimation?
Madam Chair, Trustee Manning, that's such a huge question. It's the question of the night, I guess. I think that ultimately teachers and definitely administration and students alike would love to have a regular school year and just be back. the reality is the things that the doctors talked about, there's all those factors that you all are considering, as well as this other piece of motivation and education and just functionality of the school. And can we have school like we used to have it? And the reality is there'll be things that we won't be able to do. We won't be able to physically distance. Most of our classes, especially core classes, have 30 kids in them, 30 students. So there should be no doubt that it's not possible to distance in the size of classroom that we have. There's no way to distance. We do not have any windows that open in our building, none. And so that's not a thing that we can do at Cobble High School either. I think the middle schools are different though. I think that the kids are very hungry for the normal school events that we have, prom, talent show, Mr. CHS. They want those activities because that's the fun part of being in school. And that is your motivation sometimes for doing that math class or that English class, because we're going to have an assembly that day, or we're going to have, you're going to see your friends. And so that's a piece of it. And if we come back, if we have mass gatherings, I'm not sure we want to have 1,400 kids in the gym right now. But there's also a piece of the way that we are instructing right now with only 50% of our kids at a time is classroom management is great. It's non-existent. Teachers don't have to deal with students talking in the back of the class or being out of their seat when they ask them to, because class size is so small. 15 students, the teacher can give very individualized help in person to their students. If you put 30 kids in a classroom, there will be classroom management issues. Those kids haven't been together all year. And I know Dr. French has talked about that with the elementaries, that they haven't been with their friends or in class with their friends, at least. They don't even know the other classmates. And high school students tend to be more independent, so they probably know their classmates because they've been with them for many years, but they haven't been in a classroom with them. So I anticipate some discipline will increase. We have had no fights at Cobble High School all year. We have had very minimal discipline issues, and I anticipate bringing everybody back that will change. It just will change the whole dynamic of our school, which is, we're used to that. We're used to having all of those students all the time, but it's different being that it's at the end of the school year. But we're making plans and we're ready. We have some things in place that where we will welcome, if you choose to bring everybody back, we're going to have some culture building things, some being able to implement incentives and some of those fun things that we used to do. Italian sodas on Fridays, those kind of normal things that we haven't been able to do, but maybe we will be able to do. I think that in-person instruction, as far as the rigor, in-person instruction is always going to be better. We are not an online school and our teachers are not online teachers. However, they have learned to be, and they've done a very good job of it, but they are in-person teachers. And that's going to be the best, that's always going to be the best option for students to learn, is to be face-to-face with their teachers, and that magic, that the art of teaching that happens when a student and a teacher can connect over content that they both love. So that's the magic of it. I hope that answers your question. That was long, sorry.
No, that was great. Perfect. Thank you.
Trustees, any other questions for Ms. Wilson?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I guess I have a couple questions.
Okay, Trustee Butler.
Principal Wilson, just on some of the things that you've mentioned tonight, I guess I didn't either understand fully how it was being implemented, and some other things that you just mentioned. So I guess one of the things that caught my attention is when you say that we've had students in on Wednesdays for that extra help. And I guess I've known that for a while, but I guess I didn't know how it was being implemented. And so you said that the students are coming in for the full day, no matter what, even if they only need help in one of their classes. So what happens to them for the other 4 classes? And what happens to that teacher that's in the other 4 classes that they don't need help? So I guess it's kind of a staff question of, you know, really the system that we had set up was so that teachers had that Wednesday off to be able to plan, prep, and prepare. And so we've kind of doubled up on them now. So kind of what's
Yes.
going on, or
Yeah.
yeah. So what's happening there when the students are there with the teachers, but they're not needing help in that particular class?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Trustee Butler. So we run a 5-period schedule. And so let me go back. So we have run a 5-period schedule for a shortened day all year long, even when we were in remote. We had designated periods. It was shorter when we were in remote, and we've extended it a little bit, but we end at the same time, just some finagling of the schedule. But we've done that all year. And so when we were in remote before, and we didn't have students physically coming on campus, we would go through the bell schedule, and if students needed tutoring during that time, teachers could do that virtually during the kids' assigned period. So physical science, first period, the teacher would conduct a virtual tutoring session. That's always been a thing at Cobble High all year long. And the teacher would just schedule that with the student. And then if you remember, I'm not sure when we started it, but I believe it was October, we started having special populations of students coming in on Wednesdays. And so that included students on IEPs, 504s, EL students, migrant, homeless, and also students who were not on track to graduate. And I feel like there might have been another category in there as well, but all students who did not have internet. And we started bringing those students on campus starting in about October. We really ramped that up in November, just because we were seeing a lot of students struggling, and in particular, those students in special populations. So those students started coming on campus, and we kept with the shortened 45-minute period. And then in the afternoons, teachers have time to plan, collaborate, review assessment data. We provide professional development. We tailor it to whatever the teachers need in the afternoon, and that begins at 12:45 on Wednesdays. And it has been fairly consistent, either 12:30 when we started doing these intervention Wednesdays, it's now 12:45. The students are released for lunch. So now that we are doing those interventions, like I said, we extended the period a little bit because we want, and then the students stay on campus and eat lunch. So those students go to all 5 periods. Now, if it's a student who drives and they're only maybe failing 1 class period, those students will just come for that 1 class period, but the teachers are there. They still get a prep. They still have that Wednesday afternoon time, but the student, so if the student is a bus rider, I hope this is answering your question. If a student is a bus rider, then they would arrive at 7:30 when the buses arrive, eat breakfast, go to all 5 periods. If they are not failing a class that they would go to normally, the teacher can have alternative assignments, or they can work on something quietly by themselves while the teacher helps the other students that are in there. And then the next period, they move on to the next class. So I hope that helps.
I think so.
Okay.
So yeah, so the teacher, even if they don't have somebody in that classroom or that needs help, they would still have that student in there that they would be responsible for, no matter what.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
That's correct.
And then I guess this is more of a statement more than a question, because you kind of clarified it. Talking about the teachers, you know, you say the class management has been really good, has been phenomenal, but it's hard to see to balance that with the fail rate that we're talking about. So it's like, so do we need some excitement in the classrooms to keep those grades up? So it's balancing that in my mind where we've got these great class management, but the kids are just still not excelling. And so, you know, like you said, the teachers have done a phenomenal job adjusting, but they are more in-person teachers. And I think the students, for the most part, are still in-person learners. So I'm glad you brought that up. The teachers have done a fantastic job adjusting to all of this. It is that struggle in my head where we have better class management, but we're actually still not getting, I hate to say it, better results because of that. It's just different.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Wilson and Melissa. Trustees have any other questions? Trustee Godina, any questions for Ms. Wilson?
No.
No. Trustee Swastiki, you're good? Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Madam Chair, can I just mention one other thing too, is that we have a lot of students struggling more than we want to see, more than we've had in previous years. I think that the steps that we've taken to help students has helped a lot. And I do want to recognize that we have many, in fact, most of our students are not failing anything. And not that many more are only failing maybe one class. So we do have our top 10 students are still our top 10 students. They still have straight A's. They are taking AP classes that have very rigorous curriculum. They're going to take their AP exams. And so I do want to validate that we have the majority of our students are not failing anything and they are doing very well. So kudos to our teachers for keeping that rigor, and kudos to our students who are working hard and showing up every day. And, there are still good things happening, and it's easy to focus on the negative, and we are absolutely there to help everybody. But we have some students who are working incredibly hard and doing well.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Little tidbit at the
Good
end.
night.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good night. Okay, so we've heard from a lot of different folks. I was hoping that my intent for this meeting was to hopefully get a lot of information out to our patrons and a lot of information to us trustees. We do talk about our reopening plan, how it's a living document. We never intended to say this is the way it's going to be until the end of time. This is the way it's going to be until the end of the school year. It is a living document. As we see numbers, as we see information from Southwest District office, we amend our opening plan to fit those numbers and to fit what is best for our community. So I know that we're asked to have a special school board meeting tonight, and I'd like to hear what the trustees have to say. So trustees, I know that as it stands, we have our plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keely, you've got our minutes there. So I know that the last motion that we had, she's our cook of the year, we love her. And the last meeting that we had made a motion that after spring break, which would be March 29th, correct? Our first day back, that our elementary students would go to school 4 days a week with Wednesdays off, correct? And
Wednesday virtual day.
Wednesday was a virtual day, yes, not an off day, sorry, excuse me. And we were able to visit Sacagawea. We were able to visit some classrooms and how the students sit as it is where they sit physically distancing, and how after everyone comes back, how they will be sitting. And I know that our principal at Sacagawea, Mr. Webster, has that on the back of his mind as the plan for that school and how to keep our kids as safe as possible. And so we know that's what our motion was at the time. And then we spoke about our secondary schools, and I believe our motion was that our secondary schools will stay hybrid. And like I said, And if we stated that it was going to be until the end of the school year, I just want to reiterate the fact that I know that as a board, we had decided from the very beginning that our plan, our school plan, reopening plan would change as the numbers changed. So I just want to put it out there to our patrons and apologize if that was not what some people understood. So I just want to put it out there. So where we are right now, I'd like to ask the trustees what their comments are, what their concerns are. And so I'd like to have some good dialogue.
Madam Chair, I guess I got a couple comments.
Yes. Vice Chairman, please.
So yeah, as we look at, we started the reopening plan months ago. And we have looked at it and revised it and tweaked it and fixed it and added to it and changed it. And that's what we said we would do. And for those patrons and staff that sort of wonder, did you really do that? Why did you do that? And we indicated as such on the bottom of every page. It says subject to change based on CDC, Southwest District Health, and CSD information. So, we've been upfront with the public, with staff, and so as we have engaged stakeholders and engaged community health experts, local, state, and national, and we've surveyed parents and we're trying to do the best thing that we can. I look at page 2 of the
CSD digital plan.
so looking at page 2 of the operations plan, and so this document for those of you who are online and know how to get to board docs. I think it's the first document that's listed. It's called the CSD Digital Plan Revised 2021. And so I just want to read a couple of things on here. So we built flexibility into this plan. I'll just read a couple of things. So top of page 2, in order to effectively serve the children of Caldwell while providing a safe and healthy learning environment, Caldwell School District will work closely with Southwest District Health to slow the spread. Excuse me. Decisions regarding the operation of schools throughout the 2020-21 school year will be based on consultation with health experts, community spread, and available science. So we wanted to make decisions based on medical science and research, and honestly, it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving situation. New studies are coming out every week. Then it continues, it says considerations for the 2020-21 school operations. School operations process. So how is it that the district makes decisions when it comes to opening schools, closing schools? How do we go to hybrid? How do we go to online? How do we go to all open? We've built some flexibility into the plan. So then it says school operations process. Community spread will be closely monitored utilizing the information provided in the state of Idaho and the Southwest District Health. Decisions on how to operate schools and in what phase schools opening in will be determined by the superintendent, the school board, and Southwest District Health using current community and health conditions. So after our last meeting, was it the 15th when we made the decision to go?
Was it the 15th or the 8th?
15.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 weeks ago, we made the decision to reopen our K-5 schools and have them go 4 days a week at school and 1 day virtually. And then at that time, we had decided, and I think based on the numbers, we're doing our best to interpret the numbers. Personally, I wasn't sure the numbers would go as low as they have, as quickly as they have, but at any rate, this is where we're at. But it also says there on page 1 under category, so there are 3 categories you'll notice on page 2 of the reopening plan, or the opening plan. Category 1 is the green category, and that is for the no or the low community spread. And then it also mentions evidence of isolated cases, case investigations underway, no evidence of exposure in large communal setting, example, healthcare facilities, school, mass gathering. And then it says school buildings open with physical distancing and sanitation and face covering required. So as I have looked at the data and looked at Southwest District Health, the incident rate, which is down to 1.29 per 10,000, and the Canyon County daily incident rate per 10,000, which is down to 1.4. And it was, back in December, mid-December, late December, it was 6.32. So we've come down substantially. Canyon County positivity rate, the goal is to be at 5% or less. We are right on the cusp of that. As of February 13th, we were at 5.6%. So our rates are coming down, and we have built into our plan the ability to interpret the health conditions, as it says in our plan, the superintendent of the board and Southwest District Health. So, looking at category 2 talks about minimal to moderate community spread. Category 3 talks about high or critical community spread. I don't think we're in red. I know we're not in red. I don't think we're in yellow. I believe now we are in the low community spread, which puts us into the green category. And if that's the case, and if that's what we decide, then we might want to think about revising our plan. Not revising our plan, revising our motion and revising our plan to go ahead. But in essence, our plan has always been here, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I have not looked at the green section for months. I'll be flat out honest. Like, I didn't think we would get to the green section this soon. But when we're at 1.4 and 0.985 for the Caldwell School District incident rate, so less than 1, I believe we are in the low community spread. And so if that's the case, then I think we need to consider that as we are moving forward with our secondary schools in particular, which we had said 2 weeks ago, and I even made a motion to stay hybrid. So that's sort of where I'm at, for whatever that's worth.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't think we should say hybrid, actually. I think we should open up secondary. I mean, there are pros and cons to it. We talked with the doctors about multiple mitigation strategies, or layered mitigation strategies as far as what can schools do with kids in their buildings. Masks by far is the most important. Ventilation and air, that's another important thing. But then there are also 3 other important mitigating strategies. And I have the list here somewhere. But so I'm thinking we're probably, personally, I'm thinking about, opening up our secondary schools on March 29th to go 4 days a week as well as the elementary. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so as we have it, I know that like you stated, Vice Chair Manning, the green, I believe, is every day, 5 days a week. So
I didn't see that in the plan.
Ms. Mills, if you could speak to that, please.
Madam Chair, trustees, I have reviewed the plan, and it does not say 5 days a week, but I can tell you from the instructional task force, that was the intent, to be in 4 days. And we had an e-learning day established because of when we wrote this in June. We were intentional about making sure that there was a day dedicated, went in person to train folks how to use the technology and to how to teach online as well as learn online. Going back to the green, it doesn't say that, but it also doesn't say that in terms of whether E means remote or evenings in person, but I can tell you the task force, the intention was it was going to be in.
Yeah,
Or that
no,
was-
I would be for that. That's the intention of the committee, as written or, as applied. I would be for that as well.
And I would also say, if I may, again, this was written in June and we have learned a lot from that and to that. Wednesdays are incredibly critical for the professional development as well as the learning time, the PLC time. And so we can take it back to the task force. We would take your direction on that, but the intent was in person.
Well, and Madam Chair, Vice Chair Manning, and trustees, and just to add on to what Jody's saying. I know that's where we were going because we thought we'd start in green. And we sure wanted the students to know how to use a Chromebook and how to access Google Meets. And thankfully, our teachers have been able to guide them through that. So they've had to learn that along the way. So I appreciate that. But what we don't want to do is lose the momentum we have with how we are using technology and how it's not a electronic worksheet. It's actually, we are using technology to create, to produce, to collaborate. Students are, we'd really like to see that continue to expand. K-12, all grades, all programs. So we did have, and our intent was to keep Wednesday as our early release day, where teachers still have the afternoon to plan, collaborate, and work in their professional learning communities. We did have that discussion. And so I think that's something that you'd have to consider in as we watch community and the community spread and where we're at right now, projecting out. So we are projecting out another, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? On March 29th, someone have to count. I'll say 3
4 weeks.
Thank you.
3
4
weeks of
weeks.
spring break.
Yeah. So we're projecting out. This is where we believe we'll be. And then how do we get people prepared? Because we did hear, please don't make a change and do it so quickly that we don't have time to prepare. We need at least 2 weeks to get everybody on board, child nutrition, transportation, and then to just gear up as an educator, right? So anyway, I don't want to lose what we're gaining with the technology. We sure want kids to continue to collaborate, produce, create, and just use it in such a way that they become that fourth industrial revolution student who can move on into the 21st century.
Okay. So let's say we open up in green and we leave Wednesday as a virtual day, or would that?
An e-learning day or virtual? I think we need to know.
Yeah, we need to figure out we're the board. I think that information, that knowledge should come from I would think, trustees, you tell me what you feel, that it should come from the planning committee of what would be best for our staff and our students for that Wednesday, that if we need to keep it personal development day. Or
we would have, that is our intent, is to keep at least a portion of that day, just like Principal Wilson spoke. They are bringing students in on Wednesday. Students are running a shortened schedule on Wednesday. And then they, just like in the 2018-19 school year, at a certain point in the day, that's the end of their day, and then the teachers have about an hour and a half to plan, to collaborate, review student data, review student learning achievement, and have those conversations to say, how do we get these students or help the students to the next level, or this group of students to the next level.
Yes, historically, that 1 hour and a half been enough?
Yes, I will say yes. I think it's, I'm sure teachers, there are some that would love more, right? But I think it's at the right balance of the time needed and then the conversation. We've been now, this is our, I'll say 5th year of that time, and you see it being utilized. It's just I think teachers know how to utilize that time. Building leadership is, utilizing that time, and it's just a part of that planning, that collaborative effort to help students achieve. So yes, I think it's an adequate amount of time. That was a long answer for yes.
Madam Chair and Dr. French,
Yes.
you stated e-learning and you said something else,
Oh, sure. Madam
Can you-
Chair,
can you
Trustee
kind of,
Medina. So I heard Madam Chair say virtual.
Uh-huh.
So virtual to me is what we're doing, where our students are not on campus. That it's a remote learning. Or the teachers on campus, students at home.
Sure.
E-learning to me is students are on campus under the guidance of their teacher, learning more about how to capitalize and utilize technology. So they're actually in the presence of the teacher learning using technology. That's what I do see a difference between virtual and e-learning.
So for our patrons, we'd be going to e-learning on Wednesdays.
That's what you'd have to decide if we're going to, because in our plan, the intent of the instructional task force was that it would be an e-learning day.
And that was at the beginning.
That was at the
So
beginning.
does it work now? Would it work with what we're trying to do now?
I think that I know that Jody's met with instructional coaches. I think that's a conversation that can be brought back to the board if you'd like us to go back and look at having people, Jody, I don't know, if you want to speak to that instructional task force. Is it working today? Would it work today?
I know Wednesdays are incredibly important to help teachers plan, right? Because they are delivering both synchronous, asynchronous, virtual, in-person. And so there's additional planning and additional preparation that the teachers have totally utilized that Wednesday for, as well as opportunities for the intervention groups and small groups. What I can't speak to is if we go back in person 5 days a week, taking away that remote opportunity, right? Except for like our COA kids or IDLA kids, whether there's less planning. I think given the course of this year, there's as much planning. Also, we recognized in the last meeting, I think Trustee Swastika brought this up, it's not necessarily learning loss, but it's more of learning opportunity that has been lost. And so teachers are required now more than ever to start differentiating instruction because of the groupings of kids and the ability of the kids and the ability of the skills of learning. So I would say, if I was spitballing right now, I would recommend that Wednesdays stay the way they are, at least for the time being, until I do have an opportunity to get back to the task force to talk about where they're coming from, because they're in the trenches. They're the ones that are out in the world living this. But I do recognize that right now, there's not a teacher that we have. We have an amazing core of teachers. And there's not a teacher right now that is not most worried about their most at-risk child as well as their most advanced child. And they're literally differentiating and personalized learning for each child. And that's where the Wednesdays are coming in.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, that's important to them. Okay. So and then one comment or one question that I have is, okay, so let's say we open up and I'm just thinking ahead, anything that could happen. I would hope that, our numbers go down. I hope that due to the vaccinations, due to the fact that the kids are wearing their masks, due to, just our bodies being better able to fight this virus, that we would stay in green, and then next year would be normal. That'd be great. But if the numbers go up, and we should have a rate of what our numbers have to be, correct? That we'd have to go back to hybrid, right? And follow the plan, because like we've stated all along, we're following the plan. And, if our numbers are great, let's stay green for the whole year, the rest of the year. But, if our cases go up and we're still, it's not like we're gonna go, okay, we're green, we're done, shut your what, don't look at Southwest District Clinic anymore. We don't need that anymore. We're still gonna keep track of everything and make sure that our community is safe and that our numbers, stay low so that we can stay in the green, correct? If that's what we choose to do.
Madam Chair and Trustees, I think that's what we've been doing all along. And I know that has frustrated people because they're like, well, just make a decision. We're so frustrated of coming back and forth and not all of us have lived through a pandemic before.
Right.
And we have done I feel like we've done our very best to follow the plan, and it has not been hidden. I agree with Vice Chair Manning. It has been out there all along the way, and it has been good to guide the conversation. And because you can become emotionally emotionally charged over the situation and make decisions either on emotion or we can make it on good discussion and based on fact. And I would, we have to watch that. If something should happen and we, have if we had a big outbreak, would we not address it? We would just say, well, we'll just work our way through that one. I think we'd have to meet, we like meeting. And so we'd have to talk about what does that look like for our district and for our community.
It's possible we'd have to close a school.
It is
Or
possible.
two. It's possible too.
That is, and we've talked about what does it look like? Well, and visiting with our administrative team, they're aware that we could send home a classroom of students based on our concern. But we, and it may not affect the entire school. Right. And we still have to do the contact tracing. So all of those things haven't gone away. It's just like Dr. Seuss has said, and Dr. Augustus, you still have to do as much as you possibly can. So work on putting kids in pods, making sure there's sanitized stations there. Kids need to wear a mask, and so do the staff members. They need to wear them properly. They need to cover their nose and face. Yeah, they're
what it's intended to,
right. Oh, it sounded to me like that was super important to do. And then physical distancing, we realize that we know that's not. So that's where that's the weak point.
I wanted to speak to that, Dr. French, if I
Sure.
could for a second. So I found in my notes again when I was trying to look for. So when we talk about layering, multiple mitigation strategies together to try and maximize protection for staff and students, mask, and I got this on the CDC website today. The CDC's school guidance for COVID-19 emphasizes 5 key mitigating strategies. Number 1, consistent and correct use of masks. Number 2, physical distancing. Number 3, hand washing and respiratory etiquette. Number 4, cleaning and ventilation. And number 5, contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantining. So if we can maximize as many of those as best as we can, because we know that we cannot maximize the physical distancing piece. We cannot do that. But we can make sure that everyone wears a mask and wears it properly. We can hand wash and make sure that when you sneeze into your hands, you need to wash your hand. I mean, probably teachers will need to review with students again, how to sort of touch things. I know years ago I had a friend who was a surgeon, and he invited me to go watch him do a surgery. And so I was able to do that because I was going to graduate school. And so as a graduate student, I went and observed the surgery, but they were very, very particular about, washing themselves in and out of an operation room. And so, it's that kind of thing that I think we need probably to review with kids. And then cleaning and ventilation. Some schools are going to be ventilating better than others. Some schools have the newer ventilation HVAC systems. Some schools have windows, some don't. Some have better airflow, some don't. Some schools have different, bigger sized classes, some don't. Some schools, some classes are smaller for various reasons. A choir class is bigger than, say, whatever class. The welding class has a huge shop to work in versus, maybe just your regular English class that's got 30 kids in it. So it's not perfect. And then the last one again is the contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantining, making sure that if kids are sick, they stay home. If kids have been possibly exposed, then we deal with that and continue to try to mitigate that as best as we can, layering all 5 of those strategies on top of each other, I think, to try and maximize safety for everybody.
Thank you. That's great information. And I'd like to add to that, not just with our school, not just in our buildings, but we need to let our patrons know. We need to let our stakeholders know. We need to let our parents know. You've got to practice those things at home as well. We hear you. We know that you want your kids in school. We understand. We want them in school too. Our teachers want them in school. but, we need to be safe. So, this is what we're doing at, and I'm looking at there's a camera. I'm looking at that, but I should be looking over there. And, this is what we're doing to try and keep your kids in school, trying to keep them, 4 days a week at school, and hopefully, get their grades better, have them feel better, be able to have a better school year, end of the school year. But you got, parents, you've got to do the same thing at home. You've got to help us to keep these numbers down. As you've seen before on our map from Southwest District Health, we're in the gray. Let's stay in the gray, and we've got to really work at this because, we want your kids here, and our teachers want to be able to teach your kids in person, but you've got to help us, as far as the community goes. You've got to help us stay with low numbers. I mean, that's what I've got to say. I don't know. Trustees, any other?
I have.
Yes, Trustee Swansky.
I had the privilege of having to work in the different youth areas for the past 2 weeks, which has been a privilege. And so I've been interacting with lots of high schoolers, all ages. And today in particular, they were sharing with me what they just want to be in school. And they were it was interesting because like, I know how to wear a mask, and we get breaks, we can go outside and take a breath and then come back. And she was actually walking me through the process so that they can go back to school. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And we work so hard in setting up the infrastructure, having all the supplies available, teaching and reminding. And I feel that just in what I noticed and observed of the, at the Y, we don't have as many people at the Y right now. And so it's sad, but then I get to remember everybody's names. We get to interact with one. So it's such a, but then I miss all the kids coming, and I miss like the activity and energy where, Principal Wilson was talking about that excitement. And that's what we're needing right now. And so I feel like that's to get a sense of normalcy before the end of the year, I think would be well appreciated by the students. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I drive for a living. I'm everywhere. I'll go through Caldwell, through Notice, through Parma, Ramplin, all over the county. And the thing I love to see is when I drive by a school, there's always kids walking and they're wearing masks. Even if they're walking home or whatever it may be, they're getting used to it. They're doing what it needs to be done. I mean, I think we fought long and hard for these students and our teachers. And I think we just need to keep positive and keep rolling forward. And I think we're all on board. I think what just needs to be done here. And I trust that our school district, our students, will do what they need to do. I know Bernie's already doing with his group what they need to do. And last week I was ready to take that plunge, brother. Yeah. But it's just worrisome. But you listen to the doctors and you look at the numbers, and I'm glad we're going that way. I think we've done a tremendous job. Not everybody's gonna agree with us at all times. I mean, as we see all the time, it's 50-50. So half the people are gonna agree with us. But I think as a parent myself and as a school board member, I think what we're doing here is going down the right path.
Okay. Thank you. I know that I do want to mention to all the staff and students and parents who took the surveys, we read a lot, we read most of what you had to say. We understand that there are still some people that are really scared. We understand that there's some students that, that are scared as well for their health, or, and they've gotten used to living a different way, a different plan, whether they're working or whatever they're doing. And we've read your comments. Whatever we decide tonight, we don't want you to think that we're ignoring those comments that we've read. There's a lot of comments that have tugged at our heartstrings, you know, from little kids that have made comments that we thought, wow, okay, Johnny, we're not talking about your little dog right now, but you know, just different comments. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're not ignoring. We wish that we could please everybody, and we know that that'll never happen. But we're just trying to do the best that we can for the best of our kids, because essentially that's why we're here. That's why we are members of the school board, because we're here for the kids. And so, and we're here for the teachers, and we're here for the, you know, the staff, and, you know, but, you know, we're just trying to do the best that we can. So let's write this out and see what happens, and hope that our numbers stay low. That's all I ask for right now. So I don't know if anybody has another comment, if we're ready for.
Madam Chair, I'd like to
Yes.
say a few things, I guess. I'll start out by saying that I'm extremely frustrated, and I feel the frustration for why we're here tonight. You know, I don't have a good feeling about it on one hand, and I'm excited about the opportunity on the other hand. You know, 2 weeks ago we had this vote and we made the best decision that we had. I was against the decision at the time, and I still am, but that's how this system works, and that's how this, and we lost the vote. And so it was like, okay, we're just going to stay hybrid. And so the idea now, just to come back 2 weeks later to try and revamp that, I feel the frustration. I'm frustrated that we're doing this. But at the same time, I still feel like it's the better decision, the right decision, to get kids back in the schools. We were trying to be proactive in trying to make as early a decision as possible. And I think it kind of bit us a little bit. And I'm looking at the numbers. When we talked about, we initially had the first conversation, I think it was the February 8th meeting, and just to talk about whether or not we would do anything. And the numbers were at 3.28 at that meeting. And so it's like, okay, we're still in the trenches of this. So in 3 weeks, our numbers have dropped 57%. Just in the 2 weeks since we've made the decision to stay in hybrid, the numbers have dropped 40%. I mean, those are drastic drops. And I would like to say, or I would like to think that if we had made the decision the other way 2 weeks ago, and the numbers went up by 50%, we would still be back here again saying, okay, maybe we were too low. Maybe we should rethink this. And so I do feel that frustration where it's like, no, we just did this and we shouldn't be doing it again, because we've got people on every which side and what they think. But I think one of the things that was new information for me, and I don't know if we can pull it up, it's this CDC operational strategy. Yeah, if you can put that on the screen. I don't remember seeing this at the February 15th meeting. The first time I remember seeing this was last week at our meeting on the 22nd.
Is it the operational strategy for K-12?
Yes, I think that's the one.
Yep. And Madam Chair and Trustee Butler, I think I just received that. I believe it was just last week. I'll double check.
That's not that one.
Is it the
It's the one with the picture of the teacher of the students.
K-12 operational strategy?
That might be.
I'll look to see when I
Yes,
received
this one.
that. Okay.
So this was new information put out by the CDC, from my understanding. And if you scroll down to the page 2, it shows the transmission rates and the colors. You know, they used different colors because why not? If the least thing we could do is at least decide on the same colors. I know we all have our own teams, but seriously. So their blue is the low transmission, which is Southwest gray, which was our green. And so even where our plan only has the 3 colors, Southwest and even the states have 4 colors. And even here in that moderate yellow, they're calling for K-12 open full time. and, advising for the physical distancing. But in the first page, and as Trustee Manning went over, their 5 main points, if we can hit all 4 of the other ones and are just lacking on the physical distance, I mean, this is the recommendation by the CDC that we remain open even in the yellow, that we don't start closing until the orange. So, I mean, that's new information that came out after. My understanding is that this has come out after we made our decision, which is the most frustrating thing. And I think, the doctors even spoke to it, that there's new information every week. And so it's hard to plan out for 2 weeks even. We thought 2 weeks would be easy. And so, between that and, the numbers on everything else, I'm still all in for reopening the 4 days plus 1. I do that new information tonight concerns me with the high school teachers are teaching on that asynchronous day, on that Wednesday. But the kids are getting the help, so that's good, and that's great that the kids are getting the help. I looked at some of the case numbers. So there's 171,000 cases in Idaho as of today, but there's 249 vaccines that have been administered. So, I mean, that's almost a quarter of the population that has either been infected or had the vaccine.
249,000.
Yeah, 249,000. Thank you. Did I just say 249?
Yeah.
Yes, 249,000. So it puts about 420,000 people in the state of Idaho that have either been infected with this disease or have now had the vaccine. And I know we're still a long way from herd immunity, but that's a tremendous number. The fact that we have more vaccines than cases after a year of cases is fantastic. So, I mean, everything is encouraging from what I see, and we're going into, again, the warmer months, where if we do have those classrooms that can open windows, then they can do that. The lunchrooms, we can get, I assume that we can expand outside, even for lunchrooms or breakfast and those things. And so that idea of bringing in fresh air is all more encouraging at this point than when we were looking at it December, and everybody bundling up. So
at least multiple lunches if we can, especially in the bigger schools, 2 or 3 lunches or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, I will. It's noted and be shared. May I speak to just Trustee Butler's? So this information I received from Southwest last week. It may have been out sooner, but they brought it to my attention, so I shared it with you. And you're right. That's when I had it. So I put it so that you could see what we were receiving from Southwest. And then I agree with Trustee Butler. If it had been going the other way, that's why I want to make a standing request that if numbers change, we have this conversation. And we get caught up in, well, quit changing your minds and if we see something and it swings 50% the other way, we still need to meet and talk about what's happening in our community and be attentive to that and say, okay, we're following it. Where are we at? I think we agreed that we would have it on the agenda every time we met.
Yes.
And it will always be an action item or an information item, whatever, at the time. It's like sometimes it's information only, but most of the time they've been actionable. It's been an actionable agenda item, or we had a special meeting. And I just reserve the right that we may have to come back.
Correct.
If we see a 50% increase, we really need to have a conversation. What does that look like in our community? It doesn't make people happy about, oh, you're so inconsistent. If we stay to this plan, as much as we have been able to, then this is the plan, and we're as consistent with the knowledge we have at the time. And so now it's the doctors even said that tonight.
Right.
When I believe, I don't know if it was Vice Chair Manning asked about the changing, the conflict, or maybe it was Trustee Godina about, well, sometimes you've said this and then it's conflicting. Well, that's because knowledge has changed. One thing our students will, if we should take away one great thing, so is being a lifelong learner. Because what you think you know today, you better keep working on it because it may change tomorrow, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, we said, the plan says that we will consult with health experts, community spread, and available science. So I feel like we've done that for the last year.
And I agree with all of the trustees. I'm grateful for this surveys that have been sent out. It kind of gives us an idea.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also recognized that they've been polarized. You know, it's about 50% yes, 50% no, several in the middle. But I think the comments have been most, I appreciated the comments. It kind of gives you an idea, a feel of what that person is expressing at that moment. So it hasn't been for, I have considered that.
They never fell on deaf ears for sure.
I don't believe it did. So
I think one of the other things that I've been thinking about is, and it's drastic in how it sounds, and I understand that, but it's the idea of perpetuating fear. Is that these numbers, if these numbers were the way they were in September, we would all have been ecstatic.
yes.
You know, and we would be, you know, and yet here we are, and we're on the verge of being, you know, I mean, really as a district, we've just learned that we are in the green gray, and yet we're having this, or the blue, and yet we're so hesitant to let that in, where I feel like that's some of the weight that we've put on our students and our kids is by not opening up, we're perpetuating that fear and saying it's not safe yet, when really it is mostly safe at this point. You know, by almost any stretch of the imagination, that it's okay to go outside. And so, as you know,
With a mask.
With a mask on. So as Principal Wilson talks about, you know, the activities that the students are looking forward to, the idea of prom, and what she said, Mr. CHS, all of these activities, I think that we can give that idea that it is okay. There are precautions, but it is okay to do these things. I think we as adults have been able to adapt faster in ways that we work, in ways that we interact with people, but that we've ended up sheltering our kids a little bit too much and putting that fear onto them that isn't deserving. And so if we can open up, even just to give them that little glimpse of hope, saying that it is there. And really, we still have, I mean, we keep talking about it's almost the end, but we still have 25% of the school year to go. So it's the end because it looks like the end, but there's still a large chunk to go. And I think we can make great strides in perpetuating hope that's out there instead of.
Trustee Butler, can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
How many people did you lose to COVID?
Personally, I have not lost any.
I think that's the difference.
I do have a sister-in-law who is not even immunocompromised, but she has no immune system. And my brother and her have had to make the decision that he's had to work, and he's in retail management. So he is on the front lines of the retail and has been through the entire thing, making those decisions. And so I think that's what some of this is that I rely on, is people need to be able to make their own decisions. And by opening the schools up, we need to allow that decision making to happen on a personal level. If you don't want to go to school, that's fine. We have the online options.
That was my next question. If these kids or parents don't feel comfortable, Dr. French, do we have that online option for them?
Madam Chair, Trustee Trustees, so we have had conversations with Principal Wilson about what could we do if we can't really access IDLA. So the way their terms are set up, we really can't access them. So for the last, I guess it's been, I'll say 3 weeks, maybe 4, of the what if scenario. So we do have a plan of we would create our own Caldwell online IDLA type of classroom setting for students who are concerned about returning and would like to continue in an online setting. It would not, it would be, the teachers, we can hire our own teachers to do it. It'd be very similar to IDLA. I don't know if you're familiar with the Idaho Digital Learning. I was gonna say Academy. But I'm like, Alliance or something, they changed the A part, so but we would set it up similar to that.
Okay.
So that our 6 through 12, we'd have to, look into that. Right now, we were aware of, when we started this conversation, I'd say 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, we were aware of 13 students that may need access to that. But then it was like, we need to discuss what if it's more. Elementary right now, I have not heard of any request to go to COA online. And I'll have to speak with Karen Cameron to see if she's received any requests. Because when we met a couple of weeks ago, we said we would, there is some room. We may have to hire a teacher if there were more students than what we could currently handle. But right now, I've not heard of any students wanting to go to COA because the elementary was returning. Does that help? I mean,
Yeah, definitely. I think
we were trying to be proactive and say, what if, and can we have something in place for that high school, middle school student?
I think giving the students the option and the parents, I think it feels more safe. And if they want to stay home, I mean, there's that option. But we're not forcing them to go to school.
But we would expect them to be on, it's online.
Definitely.
We expect you to be there.
All those, all
Right.
days. Plus,
Because it's, you're still in school.
Yeah.
And this is just, you've chosen to receive your education through this means. So it's not okay, well, I don't have to go.
Yeah,
I
no,
need you to
that's
be
not
there.
what it's gonna be. It's gonna be, you're gonna go to school, just like everybody else, but you're gonna be.
I would think at the middle schools, that would be particularly difficult, the way they've structured the semester. I mean, the kids are in the middle of their classes, whether you're at Syringa or at Jefferson. So you're in the middle of your math, in the middle of your history, in the middle of your whatever, and then you switched online doing what? I think the logistics of that are mind-boggling. And I mean, we can try and do that. I just think that that's really, really, really challenging. High school, maybe, sort of, I mean, because their quarter ends what, March 15th?
Yes,
So then they switch classes.
the 29th starts the new term, basically. Yeah. So we're in parent-teacher conferences is that week, that 18th, 19th. So Trustee Mann, Vice Chairman, I don't disagree. But we're pretty innovative. We have some, well, I should say, I kind of put myself in the category, but I'm surrounded by extremely innovative people. So I just like, hang on, because they know how to take this in the next level. And I think at the middle level, we have people who are innovative, teachers, educators who are extremely innovative, and how can we serve that group of students in 6 through 8 that may be concerned about returning. I don't disagree that it wouldn't be a challenge, but I think it could be addressed.
Okay. So now I've got a question because I'm just curious. Trustee Godina, so because of the question, I'm going to ask you a personal question. Have you lost anybody personally to COVID?
I actually had my wife lost her grandma and her aunt the same week. Back in October. Boy, I don't know. It seems so long ago. But yeah, it hits different. It hits different when you actually know somebody that lost their lives to this pandemic, to this disease. So, yeah, it's, and I'm thinking of 2, but I'm sure I know more that I've seen here and there. It just hits different when you've lost nobody to losing 2 people in 1 week to somebody you love and you know.
Different ages.
Different ages. It was grandma and her daughter, my wife's niece, aunt and grandma. So
I think to your point, it also depends on how you look at death. There's a lot of that. I have a mother, she didn't want to have anything to do with the vaccine. She was fine with it. If she gets it and dies, she's fine with it. She's 74 years old. That's her. That's me. That I don't care. Like personally, that does not affect me. Do I want to see my mother live another 20 years? Sure. But only if she wants to live another 20 years. If she doesn't want to live another you know, I can tell you, so I've had a lot of death in my family, and so that's how I have chosen to deal with it. Is I've accepted that death is a part of life, and it's going to happen no matter what we try and do.
I understand that, but I mean, I'm going to tell you, my wife's grandma was full of life. Was full of. Sorry, I'm talking like we're on the street.
That's okay.
Trustee Butler, she was.
It's emotional.
Well, I was like, we probably should get back to the plan.
Yes.
But I understand. I mean, I understand. But I think everybody has an opinion on it. I have mine, and you have yours. Sorry about that.
Madam-
Okay.
Madam Chair, trustees, so we can give it, we're meeting again next Monday. I didn't know if you knew that, but we are.
What?
It's true.
Yes, our regular meeting next Monday.
So we could,
Okay.
we could provide an update from COA, from Karen Cameron. We can have Principal Wilson, Anita speak to, you know, things that they're putting, the what if situation. She could probably speak to what we have planned, you know, if the board makes a motion to have secondary back. So she could, but we could have them on the agenda if you're, that might be, you know, something to consider. And it would be under the continuing operation plan. So that's always on the agenda, but we can ask them to specifically address those two areas of the online. Well, the online option would be to ask Karen Cameron and Anita Wilson to speak to what options do we have for the 6-12 or the K-5 kiddos who are concerned about returning. Yeah.
And then with the planning committee, possibly have a little bit more outline of what I want to say something like, just to, yeah, with our task force, just.
I would have to defer.
Actually, Karen Cameron right now needs an answer to your questions on the
Oh, okay, see?
Always working.
So, and I guess I'd like to ask for a motion first, and if, I mean, trustees, are you ready, willing, able to a motion, and then we can work out the details next. We can work out the details next.
You want me to make it? I move that Trustee Manning moves.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
There's a couple of things. One,
okay,
you're going, this motion may or may not include returning, is it 4 days a week plus the 1 day professional learning day, you know, virtual day. I think we need to know, like,
Maintaining Wednesdays as is.
The instructional task force is going to meet to discuss is, you know, what is that the best way to go?
yes.
So they
with
may
that.
come back with, what if they come back with a different recommendation, say, you know, making it an e-learning Wednesday. I didn't want to make sure, because
So
the
we
instructional
want-
task force will have a chance to meet.
We'll be here next
Do
week.
you have
so we
this
can listen.
down, is how you're gonna word it, Mr. VP? Vice Chair?
Yeah.
My next question.
Yes, go ahead.
So the next is the reserve of the right to revisit this at any time that I mean, it's on every board meeting, and if we have to have a special meeting, I just want to reserve the right that we can do that.
You know,
I guess, are you talking about the idea of needing to go back to like?
Yeah, what if we did?
Yeah, and I guess my feeling is we would follow the CDC and close the classroom and then the school, but it wouldn't be a district wide. But that could be something new, yeah, unless we do something drastic. So.
I just want to make sure.
So yeah, I think that's.
I guess
Which, reserving the right is just the way we've been staying with our reopening plan. It's just, you know, just keeping
it's
with
on
our
rather
plan.
than- Okay.
So what do we tell the public? Let's say we go to 4 days a week. We sort of say, well, it could be 4.5 or 4 or 5. We're not quite
Well, you
sure.
can decide that right now, this board, you can say,
Mm-hmm.
just so that you know, so this is what the intent of that language was when it was written. the process that we've been going through for the entire school year has been 4 plus the virtual learning day. We can continue with that. But we
Or
also
we can
can have
also
a
be
discussion,
open.
maybe we have a discussion at the end of April to talk about it,
Mhm.
right? But if you wanted to say, you know, this is what the process has been all year, maybe something you want to consider continuing at this time. But I don't know, I'm trying to help, and I'll back up, 'cause I gotta pick up.
No,
It doesn't sound like there would be in school teaching on Wednesdays, correct? It would either be virtual or asynchronic.
Yeah,
That's all I got in my mouth, right? Asynchronous.
I would, Madam Chair and Trustee Butler, I feel that Caldwell High School has expressed that this has been a very important time for them. And I would not want to say they can't do what they've been doing since October. I think they've.
I'm talking about bringing everybody back. Obviously, the students that are struggling, that have been coming, that would remain. But talking about it being a fully teaching Wednesday where you have the 1,400 students in the classroom, it doesn't sound like that would be the task force recommendation.
So Ms. Mills, your comment.
I would hate to speak for the task force at this point. I just know what teachers are currently doing on that Wednesday, as well as all of the differentiation we're gonna have to be doing in the next 25% of the school year to make sure that learning loss is made up.
So it may be possible, I don't know, maybe a motion that says we are anticipating,
I think you got it.
okay.
Okay.
We do.
Since apparently I'm the one doing this.
We meet it again next week.
So, Madam Chair, I move to open the secondary schools to 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, remaining Wednesday as asynchronous learning as is, unless or until further notice by the instructional task force. Commencing on March 29th, the day after spring break.
Does that also affect the, does that affect the Wednesdays for elementary?
No, because they would be the same, right? Because we didn't change that when we changed that motion. So,
Well, elementary is 4 days a week,
right.
right, at this time.
Yeah.
So
So it
at this
would
time.
mirror what we've already established for that, unless we have new recommendation from the task force.
Which could also affect the
Which
elementary.
could also affect the elementary.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we get all that? I like to, our
Okay.
board clerk.
Okay, move to open I put 6 through 12
Yeah.
instead of secondary, 6 through 12 to a 4-day week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday would be an asynchronous day. Learning to begin March 27th, right? 29th, I have 29th. Is that correct, Trustee Butler?
With the,
Oh, yeah, with that, we would meet.
I had it once, that was it.
recommendation of the instructional task force recommendation. we
With the
need to hear from
recommendation.
them Before we decide about the Wednesday.
Instructional task force.
Regarding Wednesdays.
Okay.
We'll try to have that recommendation to you guys by next week.
Okay.
Yes, we meet again next week. I know you forgot.
Okay, so we have a motion. I would like for ask for a second. Okay, we have a second.
Who seconded?
Trustee Sticky. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have any against? Please say nay. Okay, votes unanimous.
And we do, everyone knows we could still meet again.
Yes, and then
And
of
we can
course,
still tweak the plan again.
we understand that it is an open, it's a live document, and it can change. It can change according to what the document was supposed to do.
Well, and Madam Chair and Trustees, I appreciate that you invited Dr. Sousa and Dr. Augustus. You know, this is the third time they've met with us as a board, and I feel like their information, granted, it is really hospital-based and capacity-based for the system, but they have provided some good, solid information. And I appreciate their support of your efforts. And I just wanted to say that publicly because and same with Southwest District Health. I am still meeting with them every Thursday. Every Thursday morning we meet and just go over the numbers, projections, and then vaccinations. You know, where are we at with vaccinations and roll out in the next vulnerable group or whatever the next group in the tier that will be open to get those or receive those vaccinations. So I just want to thank them.
Okay, yes, I agree. Thank you very much. Okay, we actually have another item on our agenda. I don't know if you knew that. Yay! The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council fundraising dinner. So I don't know if y'all remember back in the day when it was going to be the Roaring 20s, and I don't know, Vice Chair Manning, if your wife bought the flapper dress she was going to give.
My wife did. My wife bought the dress. We were ready to go.
So yeah.
Yes.
So anyways, Dr. French has some information for us.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Trustees, so the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is planning the dinner sometime in September 2021. At least that's their hope, is to be able to do the, to still do the Roaring 20s dinner. And my, I guess, request to you, or I realize it's a ways off, but I think they're trying to see if there's interest and if we would want a table or 2 tables to attend the dinner and participate in the event. There's not a date for September. It's just September.
I think that'd be fantastic.
I think, yeah. And, given the size of, just our board and spouses and, and to have part of our school district office there too as well. I'd like to ask if we could get 2 tables.
Okay. So I'm looking around the room, bring a date or whatever.
Caleb, get your Gatsby. Cat, right.
Thank you. I'll have Keely fill out the paperwork.
Okay. Thank you.
Why don't we keep the motion on?
A motion, because it's an action item. Okay. All those in favor of attending the
I got
council? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dr. French. Are they planning on maybe coming in and meeting with us at all?
The
youth advisory. I know they're college students.
Madam Chair and Trustee Godina, as soon as we can, I will speak to the fact that we do have students, we have principals who would love for you to see and meet their students.
Okay.
So when we attend the Syringa when we are attending work session this month and we're at Syringa, Principal Swan has students who are ready and geared up to share with you the things they're doing. So I would think that there will be a point where we will be able to have the students from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council that are from Caldwell School District come speak.
And also, I guess I'm piggybacking on that is having our boardroom open to the patrons.
And thank you, Madam Chair and Trustee Godina. As you can see this evening, we anticipated that we may have some people come. We have talked with Caleb about relocating the meeting to Caldwell High School if we see that we have a group of patrons wanting to attend. So right now, this room is adequate. And we can physically distance with that. We can support, how many more additional people here?
Okay.
11 and 17 in the computer lab.
Okay. If we have an overflow, but we've also talked to Keely about that. Keely, we just need to know if it's kind of some patron interest. If we don't want to, we probably won't bring in student recognition because that's usually who came to our meetings with lots of parents and kids and recognizing them. But this time it would be just the meetings we've had. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the attendance to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council fundraising dinner in September. So
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we attend the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council fundraiser in September.
Okay, so I have a motion and we have a second. Trustee Bodina. Trustee Bodina. seconded. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any against, nay? Okay, motion carries. All right, and then future agenda items, I don't know if we have anybody want, I know that we've got some that are on our, that we've already discussed, but anything new? And I always would like to tell the trustees, if you have anything that you haven't thought of today, you think about it tomorrow or later on, please let Dr. French or I know, and we can speak about it to get it on the agenda, okay? So it's always an option. All right, and just so everybody knows, this week is Read Across America week, and so encourage your kids, your students, everybody, anybody to read. This is we read every day, but this is one where we push the reading to everybody. So, all right, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, for a second. Second from Ms. Trustee Swastiki. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, any against, nay? All right, meeting adjourned. Okay, hold on. Okay, we'll wait.